Surface Duo 2, Galaxy Z Fold 4, very different devices, but at least in some ways, the way that people intend to use them does have a decent amount of crossover. We've heard it said many times that the Z Fold is the king of productivity, the king of multitasking. I would argue that that needs to be a conversation that Surface Duo 2 is in and a part of. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how multitasking and productivity works on each device. We're going to compare and contrast, and I'm going to tell you which device I think comes out on top in terms of explicitly multitasking productivity type tasks. So first, let's talk about the Surface Duo 2 because it is one of the most unique devices on the planet, and a lot of people don't know a ton about it. It is nearly impossibly thin, has a very wide aspect ratio, and rather than having a folding OLED screen, has two independent screens, which basically what this allows you to mimic is the experience of having dual monitors on your Windows computer. So if I want to launch an app on this screen, all I have to do is launch an app on this screen. If I want to launch a second app over here, let's say it's the Play Store, it's Reddit, it's whatever, I still have full access to my launcher, to my home screen, and I can simply launch a second app. And that's one of the biggest advantages of Surface Duo, is that the launching of the second app is exactly as easy as the launching of the first app. It's the same exact process. Now, of course, if I launch an app on the right screen, I can move it to the left screen or vice versa. I can also span the app across both screens with the hinge cutting down the middle should you want to do that. It's not the best experience, but it is there. Now with the Z Fold, and of course this is the Z Fold 4, you do have your cover display, which is basically a very skinny phone display, and that's whatever. It's great for one-handed use, swipe typing and so forth is great. If we open it up, we have a single very, very large OLED screen, and let's replicate the same experience here. So launching the first app, totally fine. You're launching an app just like anything else. It's big, it's beautiful, great. Launching the second app, there are several different ways to do this. Now, because we want to launch the Play Store in a split window. You'll see I have my taskbar down here, which what this does is it gives me the same apps as I have down here on my bottom bar, but it keeps them there easily accessible to me. It also shows the two most recently launched apps, and you have access to a full app drawer. So one quick way to do this, should I want to launch the Play Store alongside Twitter, is to go into my app drawer here, find the Play Store, long press it, and then drag it over there, and now you have both of these things open. Just for the sake of clarity, these apps down here can also be drug up onto the screen to split screen, just like I showed you, or they can be just individually pressed to quickly full screen launch whatever app is down there. But there are other ways to do this. You could also do a two-finger swipe from the side, which gets you into this spot, and then you could launch the Play Store that way as well. And there is still yet another way. There's also this edge panel where you could pin apps as well, and you could drag it over from there. So whether it's the taskbar, the app drawer in the taskbar, the two-finger swipe, which works directionally, so whichever one you want on that other side, you can swipe from this side, and you should, I believe, you can move it over in that direction. There are several different ways to do it, but the biggest difference here is that each one of them requires at least one or two additional steps. On Surface Duo, you just simply launch the next app. Now, it is worth pointing out, though, that there's a ton of flexibility with how Samsung does this. So let's go back to Twitter here, and let's go ahead and do another two-finger swipe in, and let's get the Play Store running again. So on Duo, like I showed you, you can sort of swipe and move things around. On the Fold, you can tap this button in the middle, and you can switch apps around. You can change what direction they are split in, and of course, split them that way. You can also save these as an app pair. I'll give you a good example of this with an app pair that I actually would want to have. So I like using Radar Omega as my radar app, but I also like using My Radar, another app, for a wider country view. So I like to use them both in tandem. It may seem strange. I'm a bit of a weather nerd, so it is what it is. I would like to have them in this orientation and I'm now going to save them that way. And you can actually add this pair to your taskbar, your home screen, or your app's edge panel. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one on my taskbar, and you will see it down there now in this little saved app pair. And then at any point while I'm in another app, my taskbar is there. Let's click on it, and it should launch both of those apps side by side. So Duo can do the app pair thing, but in terms of the splitting them around or changing the orientation, you kind of have to approximate that a bit differently, right? So I've got two apps open here. I can just rotate the device, right? And then I've got, them oriented a different way. My auto rotation is turned off, so ignore that, the fact that that did not happen. And then if I want to switch the screens, I actually have to toss an app over and then open up the other one again. So there is some interesting flexibility and customization there on Samsung's part that, maybe does that make up for the lack of automatic stuff going on? Maybe. It is also worth pointing out on Z Fold that you can have more than two apps. So let's go back to Twitter here. Let's go back to the Play Store and split screen it. Now let's also come down here and let's grab YouTube and let's bring it in over here. Let's open up my taskbar here and let's grab my File Explorer and let's have a floating window. So you now have 4 applications opened all at once. That is not something that the Surface Duo 2 can do. You are stuck with 2 apps here. You can do as many as 4 on the Z Fold. There's also a really nice gesture to go into that floating window. Let's actually close this floating window here. That is very difficult to read. You can actually swipe in from the corner and sort of resize your floating window however you want it, and it is fully resizable at any point. You can just sort of tuck it away wherever you want it. So like I said earlier, there is just a ton of different things you can do here. But Surface Duo also has a couple of really big advantages to me, and maybe the biggest one, the one that I run into this all the time on my Fold, is the fact that each screen is gesturally independent. Maybe that's not even a real sentence, but what I mean here is that no matter what app I've used last, going back over here will always go back on that app on that screen. This home button, oops, I already had that app open. This home button over here, this home gesture will always be the home gesture for that screen. So that's not the case on the Z Fold, and this is something that's very, very frustrating for me a lot of the time. So let's have them both open, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm doing stuff here on the Play Store. That means the Play Store has priority. So even if I swipe back over here, the Play Store is the one that is going to go back. And my muscle memory tells me that if I swipe back on that app, it should go back on that app. Swiping over here should go back on the app that's over here, like it is on Surface Duo, but that is simply just not how that works. Another great advantage of Surface Duo is, let's find a link that we can open here, and let's go ahead and click on it. What you're going to find is that it's going to open up the link in a web browser on the open available screen. It's not going to open it up in front of the app you already have open. Of course, that is not how that's going to work on the Z Fold. I could go back and replicate the exact same thing. When I click on my link, it's going to open up the link in full screen on top of Twitter. And there's no real way to do anything different. There's no way to long press a link and open in another window or something like that. You would actually have to manually open up that link and then go grab your app and then re-split screen yourself manually. So again, it's coming down to, for me, the Fold has a lot of flexibility, a lot of great features, a lot of cool things that you can do. Duo does less, right? But Duo does it automatically. Everything you do is honestly simpler and just more automatic. It's just there. It just works. Surface Duo is meant to be a dual screen device. You are meant to be constantly triaging 2 applications at once. The Z Fold is meant to be a single screen device with a lot of flexibility and a lot of really good stuff in terms of split screening, but it is an add-on. It is not what this device is at its heart, in its DNA. It's very good at it. It's better than any other phone, but it's not better than Surface Duo at doing 2 things at once. I just don't see how that's possibly going to be the case, just because of how automatic it is here on Surface Duo. And I'll double down on this with my own experience. With Surface Duo, I find myself to be constantly doing 2 apps at once because it's so easy. I have an app open. I don't have to close it. I can just go to my launcher, open up another thing. I click on a link. It opens on the other screen automatically. It's just so easy. I find myself doing it all the time. On the Z Fold, it takes intentionality. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to try, make the effort. It does not present itself to you in the same way as it does on Duo. And by virtue of that, I find myself only split screening apps when I absolutely need to, which, is that better? Is that worse? That's up for you to decide for yourself. Now, there's one other thing that I'm sure a lot of Surface Duo fans are like yelling at their phones or their computers right now because they think I'm not going to mention, and it is the actual width of the screens on Surface Duo. This is a factor that some people love, some people, hey, I actually love it as well. But the fact that these screens are very, very wide, to me, is an actual advantage. It makes typing a bit easier, and you just get more text on the screen. So whether you are in phone mode, you can look at an application here. I'm on my Twitter feed here. You can see, how large this display is, or if you are in book mode, just how much stuff can be fit on screen. And if you compare that on the Z Fold 4, how skinny and narrow those split screens actually are, that I think is a really big win for Surface Duo 2. Now, I do want to point out that you can rotate the Z Fold, and now you get something. If I kind of have them at the same distance here, you can see that it is similar, right? Like, it's not nearly as bad, but Duo is definitely still two slightly bigger canvases. So it's not as big of a jump as some people think, because most people, when they see apps being split screen, they see them like this. And to be frank with you, yeah, that kind of does suck because they're both really, really skinny. But if you change the orientation, it is a lot closer than you may think. Now, you're still going to run into the same problems in terms of navigation, right? Sometimes you're going to swipe to go back and the wrong app's going to go back, and you're going to click a link and it's going to just cover up the application they're in. Like if I open up a link here, it's going to cover up the app I was in. It's not going to do anything funny or special. It doesn't understand that kind of stuff. But in terms of the aspect ratio, when rotated, it's not that far off. One place that the Z Fold does have another advantage, though, is probably with inking. Now, of course, Surface Duo can use a plethora of different Surface pens, but as for now, not a whole lot in the realm of features. You can take notes in one app. You can use the button to launch an app, double click to launch an app, long press to take a screenshot or launch a third app, and that's pretty much it. With the Z Fold, there is a ton of stuff you can do with your pen, and in fact, I have not even really explored all of this because there's so much. I will just sort of show you here your little side panel here, all the different things you can do. You can do like a screen snipping thing. You can write on top of the screen to send that to somebody. You've got, what is this? You create a note, view your notes. That's the snipping. That's the doodle on the screen. Live message. I'm not even entirely sure what a live message is. AR doodle, translating, open up different apps straight from this bar. There's a ton of stuff that this pen can do, and to be frank with you, there's more things this pen can do than the pen on Surface Duo can do. So for now, you would have to give the win in terms of inking to the Z Fold. You also have to take into account that single-handed use. This is a better device when it's like this. It's probably a worse device when it's like this. I would say the single-handed use of tablet mode is actually quite bad because you have no bezels. There's nothing to hold on to. You kind of have to have both hands on it. I'm actually holding onto the pen back here. That's, if you're wondering how I'm doing that, I'm using the pen case as a bit of a grip. With Surface Duo, you can actually quite easily have this thing on and be holding it with one hand because you've got bezels, and actually articulating this thing. People always say, I wish the bezels were smaller. I'm fine with the bezels being this way because they give me something, an anchor point to be able to go into phone mode and do things on. Like I said, single-handed mode with this is hard because you can see how little of the screen I can actually reach. I can't reach all the way across the screen. It still kind of begs to be used with both hands, whereas the Z Fold can more comfortably be used with a single hand. You can see how much more of the screen is accessible to me with one hand. So I think those kind of play in and factor in a little bit in terms of productivity. But I think that, again, if I really double down on this, it's really just going to come down to how you use your device. But if what you're looking for is the triaging of two apps at once, where you can move between them very, very seamlessly. You're over here, then you're over here, or you're over here and you open a link and it opens up over here. You are a 2 app at a time person. Surface Duo is the better phone for that specific use. Now, I'm not saying Surface Duo is all around the better device. That remains to be seen. I'm going to have a full review of the Fold 4 coming out hopefully in the next several days, and maybe we'll talk about that overall a little bit in that video. But in terms of just split screen multitasking, really hard for me to accept that Duo 2 is not better at it than Fold 4 or really any Fold device at all. Fold 4, like I said, it's the best multitasking phone on the planet that only has one screen, right? So you got to take that into account. If you're looking for a device that has all the other stuff that this phone offers, because I would say that in almost every way, Fold 4 is better than Surface Duo 2. It's a better camera, it's faster, it's smoother, but it's not better at multitasking. So you have to weight these things, right? You have a scale, and you're dropping, this is Fold 4, this is Duo 2, and you're like, camera, how much does the camera stone weigh you're going to put in that? How much does it move it, right? If it's like, oh, well, it's only a little bit better anyway, so it's not going to move it that much. But then you get to like, well, how about split screen multitasking? And that's a brick for you. It may turn that balance, and you may have, the opinion that Duo 2 is the much better device for you. That is up for you to decide for yourself. But hopefully I've shown you enough here about the different ways that they attack multitasking. And hopefully I've illustrated the differences there for you to be able to make an informed decision. Links to both the devices will be in the description down below should you choose to want to purchase one, or maybe you're feeling quite wealthy and you want to purchase both of them. I'm not going to judge you. Do whatever it is that you've got to do. Guys, thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.